Hello, everyone. My name is Petra Suniga, and I am a college student currently interning at the South Slough National Estuarine Research Reserve this summer. It's behind me. And today I wanted to talk to you all about wetland ecosystems. Many of you all might be asking yourself, what is a wetland? And to answer that question or begin to get into it, wetlands are transitional areas between terrestrial and aquatic systems, and they are one of the most productive ecosystems in the entire world. Wetlands have a number of key characteristics. Like the name implies, wetlands are wet, and wetland hydrology is linked to the seasonal or permanent flooding of a region, which affects both its soils and plants. They have hydric soils, meaning they are saturated with water most of the time, which leaves them dark and low in oxygen. And the plants in wetlands are adapted to live in this water and are called hydrophilic. These characteristics are present in many different types of wetlands. Some you've probably heard of, like swamps, as well as some like salt and freshwater marshes, bogs, and mangroves. These wetlands have high biodiversity and are home to many species of plants and animals. They create habitats for beavers, birds, salmon, and other wildlife. As a result, healthy wetlands can increase the biodiversity of an area. Wetlands also have many values for humans. They help prevent flooding by soaking up water and slowing down the flow of water. Additionally, this helps to store water both above ground in ponds or streams and below in groundwater reserves. As water moves through this system, plants and sediments filter the water by trapping, absorbing, and breaking down chemicals and bacteria. These plants also reduce erosion by holding sediment in place with their roots, which stabilizes the coast. Wetlands are beautiful places, and they're places where people can visit and enjoy nature while also learning about the environment, which provides aesthetic and recreational benefits to people. Lastly, wetlands have a unique capacity to store carbon in their plants and in their soils. The carbon that is sequestered or stored in wetlands, as well as other coastal marine ecosystems, is called blue carbon. Healthy wetlands can capture carbon from the atmosphere 3 times faster than forests of the same area. Additionally, coastal wetlands can bury organic carbon at rates 10 times faster than forests. Blue carbon storage and burial is important because it helps to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. CO2 is an important greenhouse gas that is driving global warming, so keeping our wetlands healthy plays an essential role in reducing climate change. Oregon's coastal tribes have managed the watersheds for abundance since time immemorial. The tidal marshes are integral to the traditions of 4 of Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes: the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, Siuslaw, the Coquille Indian Tribe, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. Each of these federally recognized tribes are made up of many native tribes and bands with their own languages and customs. Indigenous people continue to act as stewards of the land and its resources today. Many resources are significant to the diet, materials, medicine, culture, and spiritual values of communities. For example, Sitka spruce was used for basketry, firewood, ceremonial uses, and other implements. Wapato and camas are plants used as important food, and skunk cabbage leaves were used to wrap that food. Tulle, a grass-like wetland plant, was used widely for weaving mats, clothing, bags, bedding, hats, sandals, duck decoys, dolls, and other items. Indigenous people of coastal Oregon have names for these resources and the wildlife in the marsh. These words come from the many different dialects and language groups spoken by the tribes. For example, Hanis, Miluk, and Nuiya were all spoken by different tribes and bands around the region that is now called Coos Bay, while the Dene dialect was spoken by those near the Siletz River. In Hanis and Miluk, the word for beaver is tachina. In Dene, it's chintesh. Beavers change wetland ecosystems by damming streams, which can cause the flooding of certain areas while cutting off the water supply to others. Oregon's coastal tribes used beaver for food and for their pelts, which served as clothing or bedding. Pacific lamprey also are important species to native people on the coast. Lamprey begin and end their lives in freshwater streams and marshes, similar to salmon. They are fatty and very rich in nutrients, so they are valued food for many tribal people. The Dene name for lamprey is Dushka. Chinekwawa is a trade language spoken by many tribes of the region to communicate among oneself, and the Chinekwawa word for lamprey is skokwal. Wood ducks are another important species that lives in wetlands. Ducks use beaver ponds and wetlands to nest and find food. Their meat and eggs were eaten, and their feathers were used to make arrows or for decorations. The Dene word for woodchuck is cha'ash. Clearly, wetlands hold a lot of significance for the ecosystems and humans who rely on them. Unfortunately, they are also vulnerable to natural and human stressors. Groundwater withdrawal and other human modifications like diking, draining, and ditching can dry out wetlands. Invasive species threaten wetlands by outcompeting native species and reducing biodiversity. Sea level rise is a global problem that is impacting many wetlands, which suffer erosion and drowning. Pollutants can accumulate in wetland soils and be toxic to the plants and animals. All of this contributes to wetland loss. Over time, we have witnessed many wetland areas lose genetic diversity and habitat connectivity. Starting in the 1800s, many of Oregon's coastal wetlands were converted to pasture land. Settlers removed trees, diked, ditched, and drained the wetlands to create space for agriculture. Nearly 50% of the Siletz tidal wetlands, 70% of Yakima tidal wetlands, 73% of Coos Bay wetlands, and 95% of Coquille wetlands were lost. Draining and diking wetlands diminishes all functions that wetlands provide, leaving them impaired. As the wetlands become less flooded, peat soils dry out, are exposed to oxygen, and begin to break down, releasing carbon into the atmosphere and causing the wetlands to subside or sink. Floodwaters stop covering the surface of the wetlands, and plants no longer trap sediments. Pollutants and nutrients that were trapped in the wetlands are released and can enter nearby streams or lakes, which can turn to harmful algae blooms. Fish, waterfowl, and biodiversity as a whole decline when wetlands are drained, doubly impacted by aggressive invasion by non-native plant species. However, don't worry, it is not all loss. Many organizations like South Slough National Estuarine Research Reserve are helping convert degraded wetlands back to a more natural state so that the healthy functions of wetlands are repaired. Organizations also conserve healthy wetlands so that we can protect and preserve these valuable ecosystems for the future. So that is all for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a little bit about the importance of wetlands and are excited to dive into the upcoming unit. If you take anything away from this little presentation, remember that wetlands rock.